Hello, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the SEAT Cocaine Anonymous Unity Day here at the Temple in Birmingham. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're going to introduce Mark, who's going to give us a bit of history on SEAT. And I'll open the floor to him. He's going to do probably about 15, 20 minutes on 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes on just a little bit of history around Cocaine Anonymous, how it come over and everything. So I'm going to introduce you to Mark now. It's over to you then, Mark.
I'm going to stand if that's okay. I think I've got this mic. I prefer to stand. I don't want the table to be in between me and you. And it's just how I'm more comfortable. But my name's Mark and I'm a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is the 23rd of September 2019. But I didn't join CA until April 2023. And that was because I joined the Entire Abstinence Big Book Study in Kingshurst, and that's my CA home group. Welcome. Welcome to this second Unity Day here in the, I've got to get this right, Ramguria Temple. Did I get that right, Manny? Beautiful. He's been training me. Thank you. Yeah, the second one. We did the first one in December here, and it was so successful. 6 months later, we're doing another one, a Unity Day in Birmingham, in the Midlands, trying to bring everyone in CA locally together. And it's great that we're all here. We've got a great lineup today. Some great speakers later on. Got some good local speakers from the local groups, a good mixture of people as well. And we've also got some CA speakers from elsewhere. We've got Young Lee coming down and sharing later. We've met Young in Birmingham before, and he was here last night. I had a bit of unity with him last night. It was beautiful. Got Nick the Stitch, one of CA's founders in the UK. Not met him, but I've heard his speaker tapes online. I'm really looking forward to meeting him later as well. And we've got Donna J sharing a bit later at 4 o'clock, I think. Again, I had a bit of unity with Donna last night. She's come from all the way from Florida to see us here in Birmingham. How blessed we are. How blessed we are. So, of course, that's not everything that we've got today. As well as that, we've got a beautiful bit of lunch to be served later on. That's in the admission ticket as well. So lunch there. Tea and coffee served all day as well. And, of course, we've got a raffle later. And we're going to have a bit of music and fellowship at the end. Cara and Co are going to be a bit of a sing-song, or not quite sure, but yeah, some music and fellowship at the end of the day. So we've got a full day today planned for everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself first, because, you know, I'm self-centred, believe it or not. But my journey really started in 2007. 2007 was my first meeting. I didn't get sober until 2019. 12 years of untreated alcoholism, madness, chaos. I'm not going to talk any more about that than that. But I took my seat in the fellowship rooms in 2019. And it was wonderful. Big book, sponsor, steps, meetings. And then it wasn't so great. Is this it? And then part of my journey was the worldwide pandemic in March 2020. Terrible time for the world, and selfishly a great time for my recovery. Because we switched to online meetings and my world changed. My world changed. I got to hear some really great speakers. People who talk about the big book and recovery and nothing else. They didn't talk about problems. Talked about solution. And I got involved in big book studies as well. The meeting I was primarily involved with, the speaker meeting, I was listening to people who were coming on and sharing a message with us. I was listening to people like Chris Raymer, Myers Raymer, Earl Hightower, Ralph White, Howard Eber. These are names you may be familiar with if you've listened to some speaker tapes. And they were carrying a message with such depth and weight that something changed inside me. I got involved with Howard Eber's Big Book Study on a Sunday night. The Big Book comes alive. Big Book Study. And I did that for a few years. Did a couple of cycles of it, learning the Big Book. And I'm doing the other stuff as well. I'm doing meetings, sponsoring, all the stuff we do well. But studying the Big Book, I became really interested in the history. Loads of AA history in the AA Big Book, isn't there? We should be familiar with it. Familiar with the AA history. You know, Dr. Silkworth gave us the diagnosis, the problem. Bill Wilson, the first alcoholic to get sober. Couldn't get sober. He was like me. I was for 12 years, untreated, in and out of treatment. Silkworth said to him, you suffer from an allergy, an obsession. And he described the problem, the two-part problem of the alcoholic. The real alcoholic, the chronic alcoholic. And Silkworth worked with alcoholics and addicts in the treatment centre, and he saw a classification that he couldn't help. You're beyond human aid. That was the message that was carried. So Bill knew what his problem was, but he didn't have a solution. Fortunately for us, elsewhere in the world, at that time, there was a certain American businessman. It's documented in the Big Book. His name was Roland Hazard. And he was getting treatment from Carl Jung, the greatest psychoanalyst of the time, the greatest doctor of the mind at the time. And he could not get Roland Hazard sober. Roland Hazard kept drinking. But Carl Jung knew the solution. He said, I've been trying to elicit in you a change in your thinking, change in your psyche. We call it a spiritual awakening these days. So I've been trying to elicit that in you because alcoholics like you are beyond human aid. No treatment. Unless you can find that spiritual awakening, I can't help you. Roland Hazard got well. He found the Oxford group. And that bit's not documented in the Big Book, but it is history. Without that history, we wouldn't be here. So the Oxford group, they had 4 moral standards. You may have heard of them as the absolutes. Absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, absolute love, and absolute purity. Very hard to hit their moral standards. They did that, or tried to do that, to the best of their ability through a programme of action. Starting to sound familiar now, isn't it? A programme of action. They had what they called the 5 C's. Got to remember them now, haven't I? Conviction, conversion, confidence, confession, and the one I think is the most important, continuance. Continuance, just like our step 10 now. Continue, continue, continue. Through that, Roland Hazard got sober, and he later on carried a message to a guy called Ebby Thatcher. He's in the Big Book too. Bill's old school friend who visited him in the hospital. First visited him in his kitchen, carried a message and said, I've got religion, I'm sober. And Bill saw something different in his eyes. Bill changed. Bill had a spiritual awakening in the hospital, and he had this idea, this programme of action might keep him sober. Something he hadn't had before. And he went out and carried the message, didn't he? Carried the message to Dr. Bob Smith and then to Bill Dotson. And all that history is documented in the AA Big Book. So, excuse me. I'm going to go back to my journey now. I come back to live meetings. I'm doing all this stuff online. And all I'm getting is sharing meetings. Nobody's talking about the Big Book. Walk into a sharing meeting with a Big Book, they think you're strange. And I wanted to do something different. I started an AA Big Book study in Pye Pays in Erdington in Birmingham. And we're studying this Big Book and people are getting well. talking about recovery, carrying a different message, starting to learn a bit about the history as we go along and study the book. You pick up the history. Through that, a couple of fellas came to that meeting. They loved it. They were AA members, but they were also CA members. And said, we use the big book in CA, and we're going to start a big book study in Kingshurst. Come along. And I did. And I loved it. Love you lot. Beautiful. Cocaine Anonymous. We know what the problem is. The problem, it's not the drug, is it? It's not the substance that you use. It's the person. I look at the problem every day. I look in the mirror. We know the problem is deep down inside us. And in Cocaine Anonymous, we set aside really what the drug of no choice was. But I found it phenomenally strong message. We still struggle with that word, phenomenon. Remember the Muppets? Phenomenon. Yeah, phenomenally strong message from Cocaine Anonymous who I was getting. And I was thinking, I use the 12 steps and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What's different? What is really different is changed a couple of words in the steps. But the message is the same. Change alcohol to cocaine or any mind-altering substance. That's step 1. And in step 12, we carry the message to addicts. Where is the CA history? We haven't got a CA history book. We use the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Why? Nobody's reinvented the wheel, have they? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The solution in the big book works. You can change the word alcoholic to addict if you so wish. It really doesn't matter. Just like we can choose a God of our own understanding, and you can change the word God to something that works more for you if you really struggle with that word. The point is, we have a program of action laid out in the big book that will elicit that change inside us, and we will be recovered. But that history question was still bugging me. Where is the CA history? So I went out and had a little look. I did a bit of investigation. There's a whole website on this stuff. museum.ca.org. Have a look. CA started in America. They had the idea. The name Cocaine Anonymous was floating around as early as 1979 in New York. But it wasn't really until 1982 that it all came together. In California, in Los Angeles. 1982. If you're as old as me, you probably remember it. I know not all of you were born then. Some of us were. I was only 8. I was at school. In the UK, we had, from my memory, Margaret Thatcher, strikes, problem in Northern Ireland, Falklands War. They were the news. But what was going on in America, probably here as well, was a massive cocaine epidemic. Big cocaine problem. Pablo Escobar pushing his drugs up from Colombia. And some very, very sick people. There was a treatment centre in LA, Hollywood, the movie industry. Whilst they were making films like Scarface, there was a massive problem with cocaine there. There was a recovery centre funded by the industry. It's called the Motion Picture and TV Recovery Centre. That's where it started. The guy running that centre was an AA member. His name was Tom Kenny. And he was sobering people up, detoxing them, sending them out. Get to an AA meeting, that was all there was. And cocaine addicts were coming back to him and saying, I can't go to that AA meeting. I've said I've got a problem with cocaine. And they said, you're not welcome here. We only deal with alcohol. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Tom Kenny saw the problem and he said, I need to do something about this. And he got some guys together who were recovered cocaine addicts. Cocaine had been their primary substance. There was one of them, a guy called Johnny Segal, he was an actor. For those who are old enough to remember Quincy, he was a supporting actor in that programme. And I did quite like that programme when I was a kid. Knew nothing about the CA history then, but yeah, he was an actor. Tom Kenny said, I'm going to open this AA meeting on a Tuesday night and we're going to call it the whatever meeting. You've got nowhere else to go. You can come to this whatever meeting. It's going to be an open AA meeting and you're allowed to talk about whatever. Right? And that was Tuesday the 16th of November 1982. And it was brilliant, successful. All of a sudden, cocaine addicts have got something they could talk about their cocaine problem. Johnny S said, can we do this again? Can we do this again? Can we have the room on Thursday? For some reason, these cocaine addicts do things quickly. 2 days later, Thursday the 18th of November, in the same place, they all got together again, but it wasn't an AA meeting. At that meeting, they all gathered, probably had a bit of fellowship meeting. I'm just trying to paint the picture, you know, probably a bit of tea and coffee. I really don't know, wasn't there. What I do know is there was a lady sitting where Joe was sitting now. She was chairing the meeting and her name was Veronica, and she went, welcome to this first ever meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. The first ever meeting. And so it was born. CA was born from there. They kept the whatever meeting going. So now we've got Tuesday and Thursday, and the next week, Wednesday, say they do things quickly, don't they? Wednesday, they were in the Beverly Glen Hospital in California with a H&I meeting. Straight away on the wards, addicts. We've got a treatment for you. And they ran a meeting there. In that hospital, they also had a little room. In the room, they put an answering machine, advertised the phone number. If you've got a problem with cocaine, call this number. People were calling the number, leaving a message, and people would ring them back. Because now we're recovered, we've got responsible people, aren't we? They were ringing them back and saying, we've got something for you, come to our meeting. Come to our meeting. Remember, this is before mobile phones, obviously. Within 30 days, there were 5 meetings. Moved quickly, didn't they? 5 meetings a week within 30 days. So much was the need for a solution to the cocaine problem. The meetings spread up to San Francisco, across to Atlanta, Chicago, growth. In those first few years, I bet it was chaos, just like the early AA history. They're trying to work it all out. What do we do? What works? What doesn't work? We use the 12 steps, change a few words. We're going to use the big book. They got permission to use the 12 steps. AA let other organisations use them. They're trademarked. There's over 300 organisations now use the 12 steps because they work. And thankfully, Cocaine Anonymous is one of them. History-wise, there was a lot of trial and error, obviously. You know, now we give out little key rings with our little motto on. You know the words, don't you? Hope, faith and courage. And we give out little key rings now, but it didn't start out like that. It started with the idea, let's give recovered addicts a little desire chip in a week, in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You know the routine. We're still doing it today with key rings. But at first they had little square plastic chips. Nice little squares. They're putting an embossed logo on. There you go, there's your desire chip. There's your weak chip. And then people would relapse. People were relapsing had a nice little square of plastic. I thought maybe we need to change the design. Trial and error. If you look at the early pictures, some of them are hexagonal. And then they settled on the round design. We need a 3-word motto. AA have got unity, recovery and service. We're going to have, come on, we all know the words, don't we? We're going to have hope, faith, willingness. You got that wrong, didn't you? The first motto was hope, faith and willingness. And then they got this little round design and they realised willingness is quite a long word and it doesn't fit round. I might have to change that. And the story goes, Johnny S., the founder, was listening to a speech from John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was talking about courage. Courage. How much courage does it take for you to walk into your first meeting? How much courage does it take to say the words, my name is Mark and I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. How much courage does it take to start the 12 steps and have a good look in the mirror, do some inventory and see where you've got to change? Courage, that word fits. That's where we got our motto from. Hope, faith and courage. History-wise, it grew. They never document history. But what we do know is, started in America, grew across America. By 1986, they had the first meeting outside of the USA, and it was in Canada. It was around the same time, they had the same world convention where all the groups got together and started forming regions and world services, etc. So that was 1986. Some of the history will tell you the first meeting outside of North America was in London in 1992. I believe that's disputable. What we do know is in the 90s, CA came to the UK. There are people alive today that were around at that time and will tell you much more about the history than I know, because it's not documented, it's not written down like a lot of the stuff. But CA came to the UK, London, Brighton, Bournemouth, they're the areas it started, spread to Bristol, and it grew. And if you look at the archives on the museum.ca.org website, it will tell you Johnny S., the founder, came to the UK in 1994, did some workshops about how CA started in California and how it grew and how people suddenly had somewhere to go. In the mid-90s, we started doing CA conventions, get-togethers. I think Brighton was the first one. I think there's any argument about that one. Brighton and Bournemouth. And apparently people were coming over to the UK from America with a CA message. Guess who they were? Chris Raymer, Myers Raymer, Mike D, Ralph White. All those AA speakers I've been listening to, I now know were CA members as well, from the very beginning. Why? Because the problem's in the person, the solution's in the big book. CA grew in the UK. The first world convention outside of the North American continent, because they've had some in Canada as well as the US, World Convention, there was a bid put in by a very small region in the UK. But it's quite central to the UK. CA was really big down south, really big in Scotland. But the first World Service Convention outside of North America was in Birmingham in 2012. There'll be people here today who remember that and probably tell you much more. I wasn't around, so I don't know. But it was in Birmingham. CA didn't really get a grip in Birmingham then. Has now. Look at it. And we want it to grow. CA is much bigger now. We've got some strength, some momentum. World Convention last year was over in the Netherlands, wasn't it? CA has spread and grown. It's gone into Europe now. It's gone worldwide. There is another CA convention in 2028. Pat keeps reminding me about this. Every time we get in the car with Pat, we've got to go to Scotland in 2028. CA World Convention. So, maybe that's something to look forward to. But wouldn't it be great if from this Unity Day today, we could get together and put a bid in for the next one in the future, 2030 or whatever. Planting a seed now. From seeds, things grow. So, how can I wrap this up? How can I wrap this up now? Told you a little bit about myself, a little bit about CA history. I think the history is really, really important. Really important, because if we don't know where we've come from, we don't know where we're going. That's my belief. I was listening to a speaker tape from Wally P. He was at a CA convention, I think it was 2015, 2017. The year doesn't matter. Speaker was brilliant. Wally P is an AA historian. He wrote the book Back to Basics, if anyone's familiar with that book. 12 steps for 1 hour sessions. But he was doing this share, and it was beautiful. You could feel through the speaker tape that when he was speaking, the room was silent. They were tuned into him. You could kind of feel that through the tape. And then when he stopped and when he paused, and the clapping and the joy and the laughter and the fellowship. Wow. Wouldn't it have been nice to have been in that moment of history? Wouldn't it have been nice to have been there in that historical moment? And then I realised for the people that were there, it wasn't a historical moment, was it? They were just there. They were in the moment, in the day, enjoying the unity, the fellowship, the recovery, the hope, faith and courage. So why are we here today? Today's a Unity Day. Unity. I know some of you. I don't know all of you. There's a lot of people I've seen. I've just said hello to Andrew, who's come up from London, for instance. Met Andrew a couple of times now, but mainly online. And it's great to see people in person that you met online. But there's also a lot of people that I don't know yet. And sometimes find selfish, self-seeking, self-centred, be a bit insular at these Unity Days. And I see my little buddies from my home group and I'm going to sit with them, and have lunch with them, and I don't talk to anyone else. I think the smokers have a bit more unity, don't they? I don't smoke. What I want to say to you is just have a little look round and see all your faces now. Are you just sat with your buddies? True unity comes from reaching out to other people. Have a little look round at the people on the other row, behind you, in front of you. Get familiar with the faces. They're all your friends you haven't met yet. We're having a cup of tea later, a bit of lunch. Introduce yourself. Say hello. Tell them where you're from. Tell them how long you've been around. Ask them some stuff about themselves. And mainly see if anyone needs any help, because that's what we do. And in doing that today, together, gathered in Birmingham today, what are we going to do? We're going to hear some great speakers. We're going to have some great fellowship time. And maybe, just maybe, we'll create our own little bit of CA history. Thank you.